WTF and other questions. The world we live in can often seem overwhelming, and we can find ourselves asking what is going on. In this episode, we look at this question and how it can look like life and the world is creating our feelings, and how that is not true. We will uncover that the only thing we are feeling in every moment is our thinking. If we look deeply enough, we can see that the power of thought is constantly shaping our experiences from within. This frees us from the limitations of the world and opens us up to living a more peaceful and happier life. In this episode, we have a Kurdish freedom fighter from Iran speak who was obviously upset. We contacted him after the show and we wanted to let you know that he is doing well. Please enjoy the show.
Hi everyone and welcome to episode 34. This is going to be all about what is going on in the world and big questions. So lots to explore, and thank you all for being here. Moles, I think with everything that's been going on over the last couple of years, we've got so much to cover, and it does always go back to thought. So what we're going to share today is a way to really be in the moment and to not attach our feelings to what's going on outside, and to really live a nice and peaceful life as much as possible. So really looking forward to it today.
Yeah, I think it's a great subject. It's really open as well. So anytime anyone that wants to come up and speak or has any questions, please do so. WTF is going on, and Other Life Questions covers a lot of things. We're really interested to hear. We've got some questions tonight as well, actually, from people on Twitter, and we're really interested to hear what's going on for other people. What does it look like for them? It could be really interesting tonight.
Yeah, we're going to keep the floor open, so later on we can do some quick fire questions. I'm sure there's going to be lots of them. If you don't want to speak, you're more than welcome to just message me. I just want to run through a couple of quick thank yous. We had a donation this week from Ricky Brown, so thank you very much. And also anybody that's listening on the podcast, if you want to head over to Fountain, which is a podcasting 2.0 app, and you can actually stream and earn free Satoshis just for listening. So if you are listening on any other platforms, head over to Fountain. And thank you very much to Aaron, who's always boosting us on the Fountain app. And if you are listening, please give us a boost, and we really appreciate it. So yeah, loads to get into today, and really looking forward to it. I think this is going to be one of our most interesting episodes because it covers so much. We've covered addictions, we've covered money, we've covered loss, and I think today is going to sort of encompass quite a few of them. So yeah, very excited. Thanks, Moles.
Thank you. And I think you were going to say something about our numbers this week that we're very excited about.
Yes, we are. Guys, we are number 9 in Portugal for mental health. So we've been in the top 100 for quite a few countries. I'm personally really happy about being high in the philosophy and the mental health categories for Ukraine, for Venezuela, for countries that are really struggling at the moment. We always rate really highly in America as well. So thank you to all of our listeners. I think we're about 3,500 downloads, and that's just for this week. Between the podcast and the spaces that we did last week, I think we're at 1,300 listens for the ones that you guys were in last week, and added to our total stats. Yeah, we're at about 3,500. Is that right? 'Cause that sounds...
Yeah, I think it's over the last month, 3,500 listeners on the spaces and on the podcast, which is huge because we haven't been going very long. So I think that's really amazing that we've got there so quickly.
It is huge, and we really couldn't do it without you guys. So what me and Moles are sharing here is revolutionising people's lives, the mental health industry. Once you understand this or learn to sort of immerse yourself in it, then traditional therapies, they kind of become defunct. Once you understand this, there's no need to go outside and search. So it really, really is revolutionising. So please continue to share it with your friends, your family, whoever will listen, really, because it's making such a difference. So just wanted to say thank you again for that.
Yeah, that's lovely. And, we are a team, like Gem and I are a team, but so are you guys. You're part of the team, whether you're listening on Spaces or on the podcast. So please share with anyone you can, and really let's get this message out there. We really do aim to be the number one mental health podcast in the world, and we can't do that without you. And as I always say, I want you to listen like you're listening to your favourite piece of music. I want you to relax. I want you to let your problems melt away for this hour. And I want you to fall into the space where you don't know anything, because from there you can realise absolutely everything. You can begin to see things in a fresh way. And we often get stuck in seeing things in a really set way, in a really fixed way. And we really need to be open to seeing things differently. And I think the title tonight of WTF is going on, another live questions, really kind of looks at what's been going on in the world over the last few years. We've had so much go on. We've had COVID, we've had lockdowns, we've had wars, we've got the economy is being destroyed. There's been protests all over the world. There's division. There's a mental health epidemic. There's lies everywhere. There's fact checkers lying. It's like we just don't know where we are anymore. It's really hard to find truth out in the world. And for many of us, we would have had this WTF is going on moment many, many times, I would imagine. And what we want to point back to, and what Gem and I see, is that peace is always there no matter what's going on. It's always within. And when things get heavy, when we get into that WTF moment, when we get into that heaviness, those heavy feelings are nothing but our own thinking. So what we explore on many of these calls is the understanding that points to that we're only ever feeling our thoughts. That thought is the creator of all of our experiences. And one glimpse of this thinking that we have, this thought system from within, and the world transforms from darkness to light. That's why this understanding is so helpful for mental illness. But it's not only for mental illness, it really is for everyone. This understanding really points us home, and it can be used in many ways. It's used in business, it's used in prisons, it's used in schools, it's used in so many different areas. Where I find my work is drawn to is mental health, is well-being, is pointing people back away from the stress and away from all the things that they feel is burdening them in the world, and pointing them back to this quiet calm that exists within us. There isn't any area of life where this understanding doesn't touch. And that is because life is made from this understanding. What we're pointing to is the building blocks of existence. We're pointing to the energy that created the form of experience. So when we point to that, when we touch that, there's something deeply peaceful, and we resonate with it, and we suddenly realize, and we fall out of all the content of thinking, all the thoughts that drive us crazy, and we come back into the now. So what I teach is something called the 3 principles, and please explore it more for yourself. But the principle that we talk about a lot on the calls, because it's really helpful to talk about, is the principle of thought. Because in every moment we are all thinking. Even when our minds are calm and quiet, thought is still flowing through. We're still getting that experience via thought. We may not be caught up in thinking, we may not notice thinking, but it can only ever be the thing that is creating our experience. And we all know we think, but these conversations are about pointing us back to knowing that, yes, we are having thinking in our heads, but it is actually creating our experience. It's creating your view of the people in your world. Your thoughts are creating partner, if you have one, your friends, your boss, your parents, your children. And how do you know that that's thought created? Because everybody else has a different view of those people. And even you have different views of those people at different moments, depending where thought is. So it's creating the people, it's creating the circumstances, it's creating your experience. So pointing back to the totality of thought allows us to really deal with the WTF moments much more easily, because suddenly we go, oh, I have within me truth. I don't need to seek it outside of me. I have within me well-being. I don't have to seek it outside of me. So in this crazy world that we're in, it's really helpful to know that there's a home within us where we're always okay. thought is shaping every experience that you've ever had. Thought is also shaping your feelings. It's generating all your mental activity, and it's determining what you're experiencing in every moment. And that feeling will match that. If our thoughts are heavy, we'll feel heavy. If our thinking is light, we'll feel light. So we come back to see a system that's always operating. And the beauty of that is we don't have to take so much notice of the content of what thought is saying. Because even when we're at our lowest, we can see, hold on, I may feel like absolute crap. I may not know what is going on, but I know it's being created by thought. So if that is the case, I have within me the possibility and the absolute certainty, actually, of new thought coming through at some time and me seeing things differently. Because that's always on the table. That's always available to us. It can't not be, because that's the system at work. So when we begin to see this, when we see that thought is creating experience and life gets really tough, we can live in the moment and deal with life being tough, because we have this toughness. It brings this mental toughness, because suddenly we're seeing we're not vulnerable to the outside world in the way that we thought we were. The outside world is there, absolutely. I'm not denying that we're having the experience of a world, but my reaction to it is all me. It's always me. Now, of course, in moments, life can get intense and we can react, but it's that calming down after. It's that, okay, I reacted in that moment. That reaction came from thought. How do I respond now? What do I do now? Now, if I see it's thought, I can stay really calm. If I think it's the world coming at me, I'm going to go into victim mode, and I'm going to find that quite difficult to deal with. It's a shift. It's literally going from one understanding of how life works to a completely new understanding. It is a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift of psychology. It's a paradigm shift of going, okay, the world is actually coming from me, not coming to me. So I am in the power position here. Yeah, I'm not a victim of the world in any way. I'm the creator of my world. So we're seeing it differently. We're having a different experience of being alive. The founder of the 3 principles, which is what I teach, is called Sydney Banks. And he said, you are only ever one thought away from happiness and one thought away from sadness. The secret lies in thought. How often have we not seen that? How often does it look like it's the world that has to contain our happiness? It's the world that's creating our sadness. And that doesn't mean to say we don't experience the griefs and the upsets that the world gives us, but it doesn't have to be a constant. When I work with somebody that's experiencing loss and grief, there'll be these moments of deep upset for them, which I won't deny. I won't tell somebody that's grieving, oh, it's just thought. Absolutely not. It will be, yes, of course you're going to grieve. The human experience is one of all emotions, of all feelings in all their depths. And it's okay to feel that, but it's also okay to not feel that. So when you feel okay, when you come out of that contraction of grief and loss and that feeling and you lighten up, that's fine too. And what you notice, and what I get my clients to notice, is when they're going through grief, it's not all darkness. There's moments of light. There's moments of laughter. There's moments of happiness. But when we go in and we contract into the darkness will say that that's all that exists. But it's not true. It's like a trick of the mind. You know, you're sad or you're grieving or you're feeling depressed. That's all that's on the table for you. And this is life. And you felt like this before, or it may be back again. And there's a whole narrative running around the mind about the feeling. The feeling's just a visitor. You know, I've been going through this with clients this week. It's been really interesting. And a couple have really had insights into this idea of our feelings are just visitors. So feel the sadness, feel the grief, feel the crying. Because another visitor will be along shortly. And that visitor may be happiness, it may be laughter. So we don't get so stuck when we understand thought and what it's doing. We get to see that no matter what, if we're seeing clearly, if we're coming out of the contraction of the mind, we can often find humour in a situation or problem. We can often see it more lightly. There's so much to see in this understanding, as I've said before, because everything in life is made of one thing, and it's these principles, it's this understanding. We have a mind, we have thought, we have awareness, we have an innate intelligence, all of these things that these principles point to are every human being, and they touch every aspect of life. So this coming home is touching the deepest sense of who we are. But what we often do is we try to find freedom out there where it doesn't exist. We try to find freedom in thought, in the content of thought, in what the mind is saying. But it doesn't exist there. That's why we can never find it. There's no freedom to be found in the story. And peace isn't going to be constant, by the way. You know, even when you understand this and what we're pointing to, peace will come and go. Sometimes it will appear and then it will disappear, but you'll know it's always there. Our continued state of mind isn't one state of mind, it's an ever-changing state of mind. And there is not a right feeling. Okay? There isn't a wrong feeling, there isn't a right feeling. That can be quite hard to see. I know for some people when they get really stuck in their feelings, there's just feeling. What happens when we can detach from the what is going on? What is life? What if we can just detach from those problems and the feelings that they create and see that, oh, this is just another experience, because you can't stop thought and you can't actually stop feeling, but you can have a different experience of it in the observation of it. Because life is a kaleidoscope of experiences and we are supposed to have all of them. And that can be so difficult to see when you're going through a difficult time. But all I know is that if you're experiencing it, it must have been how it was meant to be. And knowing that acceptance allows us to gracefully go through those really dark times. You know, those what the fuck times can be dealt with, still with pain, obviously, still with upset and still with some turmoil, but with also moments of peace and love and well-being. And a knowing that anything can change at any moment. See, peace isn't the management of a certain feeling. Peace isn't the absence of a certain feeling. Peace is knowing that any feeling is okay. To me, when I saw that, that changed everything. Oh, I don't have to manage and have a certain feeling, and that's the only time I'm okay in life is when I'm in that feeling. No, it's different to how it looks. It's not even that there's a you with a feeling flowing through. You are created in that moment with the feeling. Your whole experience is thought created you and feeling oneness. It's not a separation. There's not a separate person, like these little rings on these little circles on the screen, this separation, and this separation has a feeling passing through. It's actually, you're created with that feeling in that moment. That's everything that's on the table for you, because that's coming from these principles until it changes and a new one comes through. And it's really hard to explain because we go so deep with this understanding, but you can experience it. So these conversations and this new way that I talk about of experiencing life, and, oh, that sounds nice, but how do I do that? Well, unfortunately, there isn't a guidebook. There's conversations to be had. It's pointed to, but it's ultimately seen from within. The difference is, if I said to you and had a conversation with you about Paris and I explained to you exactly what Paris was like, you get a feel for it. Well, Paris sounds nice, but your experience of being there would be completely different, because it would be your experience of being in Paris, and it would be lived. It would be a lived experience, not an explained experience. And that's what we're talking about here. And that's why we always say stay in the conversation, because when you have the lived experience of these principles, that's when life will change for you. When you have that insight, that aha moment, That's when the WTF is life starts to make a little bit more sense, because you start to understand, well, you are life, and life is for living, and it doesn't actually need to have meaning, because the meaning of life is just to experience it. And everyone scrambles around trying to get meaning and work it all out, with these finite minds trying to understand the infinite. How can a finite understand the infinite? Can you see how that would be impossible? So this explained experience versus this lived experience is so important. So you'll listen to the podcast, you'll listen to the spaces, you may have conversations with me, you may read books, you may watch other videos. But that moment where you see it, and people see it differently. Some people get little incremental insights over time that build up until life looks different, and they see that it's an outside in experience, not an inside out one. And other people have huge awakenings where it completely transforms overnight, and neither is right or wrong. Everyone has the experience that they're meant to have. It's back to this beingness that we talk about a lot. It's back to who you are before who you think you are. And it's in that challenging of who you think you are where you can start to unravel the character and the programs and the conditionings that are running, that are creating the you that you think you are, that you're not. And it's in that where freedom begins to be found. And it's in that where life makes more sense, and still makes absolutely no sense. I'm not going to say that because I found this that suddenly I have all the answers. Life, wow. My favourite saying is, oh, that's lifing, because that's about as close as I can come to it. But I do know we're here to have this experience. I do know we're here to be human. I do know that it's not about escaping the humanness, which is what I used to believe. I see that it's about living it, immersing myself in it fully, even when I don't feel like it. Again, because I understand this doesn't mean my feelings are amazing all the time. I go up and down like everybody. I do not get so caught up in the feeling. I do not try to fix the feeling. I allow the feeling to be until the feeling goes and a new feeling appears. And there's a new moles in every feeling. You know, there's a happy moles, a joyous moles, a dancing moles, a sad moles, an irritated moles. Again, can you see how that's the creation of me in the moment, rather than a separation with a feeling coming through that I need to change or resist? It's much simpler and easier than that. There's a Adyashanti quote: whatever you resist, you become. If you resist anger, you are always angry. If you resist sadness, you are always sad. If you resist suffering, you are always suffering. If you resist confusion, you are always confused. We think that we resist certain states because they are there, but actually they are there because we resist them. And that can be really, I get that can be, like, how do I do that? But there isn't a doing, just drop out of the doing. Everything lives when you drop out of the doing. Everything that you're looking for is there when you drop out of the doing. And again, doesn't mean to say we don't have lives and goals and actually do things in our lives, but the doing to see a deeper understanding of who you are is impossible, because it can't come from the intellect. It doesn't belong to the intellect. It belongs in the stillness before your mind, in the quietness of your heart, in what's unknown to the mind, not what is known. So yeah, that for me is the WTF is going on. What's going on is experience. What's going on, as I said, is lifing. Is moles-molesing, gem-gemming, mugsy-mugsying, do-doing, criss-crissing, witty-wittying. Whoever's on this call, it's like, that's what's happening. It's okay. It's perfect. It's just that our minds say, oh, no, it's not. It needs to be different. And it's in that pushing away that we kind of hang on. It's so paradoxical. But I've seen it to be so true. Stop pushing, stop pulling, stop resisting. It's in that moment where we let go, where it's all revealed. What's really frustrating, and I get it, is like, how do I let go? I used to be like that. It comes through you in the right moment. There's a moment where it's seen and letting go happens. It's not a doing. There's not a you letting go. It's just a letting go that happens. There's a falling away. So I think we've got some questions tonight. So I'm going to pass back to Jem and get her reflections and then see where we go from there.
That was excellent. And a couple of times I was giggling through it because what you just said was about the letting go. And I remember getting really frustrated with that as well. And then one day the penny dropped and I realised there was nothing to let go of because there's nothing to hold on to. So I was kind of double effing myself, if you like. I was thinking, oh, how do I get rid of these things? How do I stop doing this? But I was giving more attention to the thing that I didn't want. So it was kind of becoming aware of my own bullshit, really. The things that I didn't like in life or the things that were scary to me, I had to walk into and, look at them and say, well, why don't I like this? Because it was something about me that I was either afraid or nervous or whatever. It kind of seems to just dissolve the old thinking patterns, just dissolve. There's nothing to really do apart from sort of be aware. It seems like everything is speeding up. The world is getting more and more crazy. And trying to find yourself in that world is quite a dangerous thing to do for me personally. And I don't know about other people, but going inside and realizing that presence is always within you. Peace is always within you. You don't need anything from outside. That was sort of the biggest revelation for me. And you can take solace and comfort in that you've got everything that you need inside, sort of like maybe a knowing that takes place, that you have, I don't know whether it's an experience or an understanding, but you learn to listen to your inner voice, to your soul, not from what's happening outside. And it's quite a big revelation, realizing that sort of, what's the phrase, that the kingdom lies within. And I really believe that is true. A few years ago, I would have said, no way, this will make me happy, that will make me happy, or I can't do that because this happened to me years ago. It was, when I look back, I was going to say it was pathetic, but that's not very nice and very kind. I was doing the best with what I knew, and it's really flipped on its head, and it's really quite amazing. But I know that anything can happen in the world, and I'm still okay. One of my friends at the moment is quite worried about the economy and the price of living costs, and sort of keeps sending me different things about the rates and what's changing in different countries. And I said, well, it's all well and good getting tied up in these things and learning about it, but unless you're going to be an economist, why don't you just create a life for yourself that gives you the money that you need to support the lifestyle you want, rather than complaining about the shitty existence? I sounded a bit harsh when I said it, but I thought, I used to worry about what's going on in the world and money, and now the only person that can change that is me. So I have to create different income streams. I have to create a life for myself that I'm happy with. And then I won't complain about that. But it's realizing that no one's going to save you. You can't be a victim of the world. And I was very, very much doing that. And I feel like I'm being quite blunt here. And I have been over the last few weeks. Miles, you said to me, God, the 3 principles has really turned into, I can't remember the word you used, and I don't want to swear too much, but yeah, just quite blunt and doing exactly what is right for me rather than what other people want me to do or what I think is, just taking my power back and living for me. So another example, one of my friends is in a sort of toxic relationship, and you never know the full story. I've only heard one side. But from the way that she's behaving and the way that she's not very happy. And a couple of days ago, I had a message to say, oh, you've not replied to me, you're ignoring me. And I wasn't ignoring her. I think I'd opened the message and not responded. But I said, come on, this is not you. We've been friends for a very, very long time. And she was seeing the world through the eyes of the relationship. She was thinking that no one's there for her, that she's completely on her own. We had a chat, and within a couple of minutes, she was absolutely fine. But I wasn't surprised that she spoke to me like that and thought that I was sort of leaving her on her own. I think she feels quite abandoned at the moment and things. So it was really important to her that I said, you don't have to see everybody as what your partner is behaving like at the moment. And we touched on relationships, I think, in episode 28. And there were lots of questions and lots of people that came up talking about sort of abusive relationships and problems with narcissists. And when you are dealing with things like that, in a lot of the world with what's going on, we've got these kind of dynamics. So it's really important to know that you are okay inside, and whatever is happening outside, you don't need to attach to it. So those were a couple of things that I felt were important to talk about, because they've come up for me with friends that are sort of struggling, and whether it's money, whether it's a relationship that you're dealing with, these are all outside influences and you don't need either of them or anything to be happy. So hopefully that all makes sense. But I just wanted to share these examples because they're very common.
Yeah, I tell you what, I loved what you said was that she was seeing the world through the eyes of the relationship. That was beautiful. It really kind of struck me as something that's what we do. It's the mind will be so stuck in an idea of what life looks like. So for her, life looks like a bad relationship. So that is then filtered into every area of life. You know, isn't that fascinating that it's such a simple way to see it? So where do we get caught? You know, where do you get caught? Where do I get caught? Where I'm seeing the world through the eyes of something that's going on in my life that I'm creating, and then I'm applying that to everything else. And it can just be one small area. You know, and that's where I say so I'm working in a business, well, I'm not going to work in a business and talk to the staff in that business and only talk about work. Because if they've got a problem outside of work, that's going to be colouring everything. That's going to be tainting their workplace. So again, we come back to how are we seeing things? What's the area that we are holding ourselves back with via our thought system? How can we wake up to how we create the problems in our lives? And how we wake up to it, in my opinion, is through this understanding, is through seeing it's us. And there's another quote, and I love this quote. I really love it. And it's, as long as you think that the cause of your problem is out there, as long as you think that anyone or anything is responsible for your suffering, the situation is hopeless. It means that you are forever in the role of victim, that you're suffering in paradise. And it's that last bit that really, really hits me. You're suffering in paradise. Because that's what we're doing when we get caught and when we get lost in our heads. No matter what the world looks like, you know, we touched upon this earlier, that there's a lot of turmoil in the world, there's a lot of upset in the world, but there's still so much beauty. There's still so much to see. There's nature, there's love, there's people, there's experiences, there's so much. So what are our filters that are stopping us from seeing that? What are our filters that are creating our suffering in paradise? So I love just that thing that Jem said about seeing through the eyes of the relationship, seeing the world through the eyes of the relationship, because that ultimately is what we all do at different times in our lives with the things that are going on for us.
Yeah, and there's another point I wanted to make about something that you pulled me up on a while ago, which I'd been avoiding for ages. And it was, I procrastinate. I've got all the ideas in the world, but my execution sometimes is not that great. And I can't remember the word that you used, but something about like actioning or something like this. And I sat down the other day and was thinking about it. I was like, am I unmotivated? Am I lazy? Is it distraction? I always think that I can multitask. I'm doing multiple things, but I really don't end up getting much done. So I was sort of thinking, why am I avoiding these tasks? Why am I not doing it? I'd say, oh, I'm going to start doing this at 10 o'clock and I'd start doing it at sort of 3 and I'd find other things to do in the meantime. So I was thinking, what are the real reasons that I'm not doing it? I was working through them and we spoke about the 7-second rule and I've implemented it over the last few days. And when I get a thought or some inspiration of something that I want to do, within 7 seconds, I will write it on the list or start the email. I don't have to complete it, but I action it. And that has really, really helped. But God, for years and years, procrastination has held me back. And that's something that I think is going to change. I found a quote about it yesterday from Dr. Phil States, and he said, procrastination is a voluntary delay of an intended act despite the knowledge that this delay may harm us. So I suppose it's cognitive dissonance in a way, like smoking, it's bad for you, but you still do it and your mind blocks it off. But God, what a relief. I've been, running around for years thinking there's so much to do and getting some stuff done, but not being productive. But I know for a lot of people, especially within crypto, they work for themselves, whether they're traders or whatever. But the things that annoy you, basically, figure out what it is that annoy you about them and stop giving it attention. Being aware is so, so relieving. And I think for me, that's the biggest change, being aware, really. We do have a few questions as well for today. We want to go through some of them. If anybody wants to come up and ask them, we can do that too. So the first question I think we'll go for is from Artorius, who's in the room. And the question is, how can I switch off from the responsibility of other people relying on me?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think most of us have it in some way, and some definitely have more responsibility than others. I guess it's seeing that you are meant to have the responsibility. If you weren't meant to have it, it wouldn't be at your door. So I think, again, it goes back to where I spoke earlier about not resisting experience. It is as it's meant to be. Sometimes we can just start to see things a little bit differently. So I could see that I have a lot of responsibility because I have clients and I have people that come to me and people that want help, and I'm minding, and I really try to be there for people as much as I can. But I think I'd see that more as a blessing. And I see that as a blessing because I can see it through the eyes of this understanding. And what I mean by that is that when we see our true nature, when we see that actually what we're pointing to here is that we are one, that helping another is helping the self. So then it starts to shift our thinking around it. Instead of something being heavy, and the heaviness that you're feeling around people relying on you is actually thought. It's created by our thinking around that situation. And if we can begin to see actually okay, well, I don't need to believe my thinking around that. I can loosen it up a bit. I can play with it. I can begin to see it differently. And I can also begin to see the situation from a much deeper level. I can begin to see what a gift it is to have people rely on me. What a gift it is that I have DMs where people reach out that say, can you help? I'm feeling lost. I'm feeling bad and I need some help. And for me to, in the way that I can, do what I can. I still am one person and I can only do so much, but I think it's just enriching. So I think in some ways society has misled us to see it as a burden when it's not. I think we can really get so much from it. And I actually think if all of that was taken away from you, you'd miss it. Because you'd realise the gifts that were within people relying on you, in people connecting with you in such a deep way that they feel that they need you. Now, the flip of that, which I love as well, again, because we can get to see things in many different ways, is that ultimately we're all okay. When we get caught up thinking we rely on someone or we need their help, absolutely that's fine. But ultimately we have everything that we need within us. So what even we're giving them, that help that we're giving them is, yes, we're connecting with them, we're helping, but we can also point them back to, you kind of got everything going on. This is additional, it's lovely we get to connect and we get to share and you get to rely on me. But what about that which is within you that's always okay? What about that within you that needs nothing from the outside world? What when we wake up to that, when we begin to see that, when we begin to explore who we are, we begin to see that other people are that too. So you then see that actually They may be coming to you in a misunderstanding of needing you to be okay, and you can help them, but you can also say, do you know what? I'm willing to help you. I want to help you. I want to take care of you, but you've really got it going on anyway. And I think that can be an area where we can really explore this understanding and see what's true for us. Because again, there's so many different ways to see things, so many different ways to experience somebody needing us. It can be a burden, it can be a gift. We can help them, we can point them home, we can take them in, we can make it seem like they need us, we can say you don't need us. We can explore it in so many different ways. But the truth is, we're having a separate individual experience of being alive, but that comes from a place where we're all one. Back to the paradox. Back to, of course, we want to help people. Of course, we want to do what we can and support people and have them rely on us. But actually, the best gift we can give anyone is showing them where home is, showing them that they've already got everything that they need within them, because then they lighten up. So does that help? Is that making sense?
We have a love heart, so I think so.
Good. Okay, good. Yeah, because I get it can be confusing because we're pointing to two different experiences that are one. There's the experience of the humanness and there's the experience of the divine, of who we really are before the character and the experience. So we're going to have two different ways of dealing with that. But the deeper space that we come from is always going to be the most helpful, in my opinion. But we're human. We want to help. We want to share. And I think I've probably said it before, but there's a beautiful quote that a man really understands life when he plants a tree that he will never sit in the shade of. That to me is wow. Beautiful.
It is beautiful. And we've got a request, so I'm going to add Therese up and then we can go through some more questions. So
Brilliant.
thank you. Thanks for being here, Therese. And I hope I've pronounced your name correctly.
Kurdish, and I am from Kurdistan. There is a very, very big, massive protest, and the government kill our innocent people. Why the world don't look at our people? They just looking at the Ukraine. Why you don't do everything for our people? They kill our people on the street, and you don't do anything. You look at this massacre, and you don't do anything. Why this like that, like this? So if you can explain it for me, and if you can go to the United Nations and say something for my people, we can do anything. Because they just looking at Ibrahim Raisi. He's a big murderer of Iranian people and Kurdish people. So go on the United Nations and do something for our people, because we can go to New York. Okay, have a great night and have a great day. Goodbye, people.
Thank you. It's not really a political spaces. I'm really sorry that this is happening in your country. I don't think any of us on this call are in any way responsible or have much power to do anything about these things that go on in the world. But yeah, I do understand it's very, very difficult if you're living in a country and these things are happening. But ultimately, it's really not something that we can deal with on a spaces on Twitter with 40 people. It's something that needs to really be addressed. And we can see that the world is full of lies and corruption. And I don't know enough about your situation or what's going on there to comment actually on what's really going on. But yeah, I'm really sorry that you're going through that.
But thank you for your question and thank you for coming up. And yes, as we said earlier in the call, I know it's a hard situation, but looking inside is going to be the only way to find sort of peace. We're going to move on to the next question. And that's from Happy Chimp. And he says, how do I manage overthinking and avoid rabbit holes?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because I would have thought if I did a show of hands on overthinking on this call, everybody would give it the thumbs up that, yeah, me too. You know, we all overthink. It's definitely a trap that we all fall into. I would say understanding the principles definitely allow us to not fall into the trap so often. We still do, but it becomes less, because what you find is you catch yourself more. You begin to have a better relationship with your own thinking. Like before I understood thought, I had no chance of really not falling in the rabbit holes, let alone get out of them when I did. It was much more, as time's gone on, as I've immersed myself in this understanding, as I've had a deeper understanding of the energy of thought and the nature of thought, I can go, okay, I know what's going on here. Now, does that always stop the overthinking? No, but I don't get so caught up in it. It's like, oh, I'm having an overthinking moment, morning, afternoon, day, however long it lasts, but I'm not quite so taken in. And what I find is I do come out of it much more quickly than I used to, because what happens is it's like a noticing. I never used to notice thought. I just used to be in it. And now I'm really noticing it. There's a moles that can see my own thinking. It's not just me experiencing it and being lost in it and, oh my God, my brain and my mind and what's going on, and I'm thinking too much and I can't stop thought, and we try and stop thought with more thought, and no, it's like, oh, mine's going a bit off today. I can see that what it's doing. I'm going to actually just take a bit less notice of it. So it's not stopping thought, it's changing your relationship with thought that is key in this understanding. You're always going to fall down rabbit holes. I still do too. I just seem to have a ladder now, and the ladder is the understanding. And at some point I'll go, oh, I noticed the ladder of the 3 principles in the rabbit hole, and I go, oh, okay, that's my way out. And it isn't really a doing, it's just, again, back to a noticing, back to seeing what's really going on. And what's really going on is thought is full of shit. And I say this over and over again. So seeing that is incredibly liberating. That's where freedom lies. It's not in thought saying a certain thing. It's not in not overthinking. It's understanding what thought's doing.
Yeah, and sort of not believing your own thinking, that can be a real game changer. But we live in the world of information. You can find anything that you want on the internet, and you can really get lost. You can find the opposite answers. So I always say, try and trust your gut instead of Google, because you can get really, really lost with conspiracies and trying to figure things out. But just coming back home and finding within, I find that's really, really helpful. We had a question from Patrick as well, who says, how do we get the message of mental health and illness across with people that have a lack of knowledge or afraid of understanding? Now, I'm going to answer and I'm going to say, listen to Unminding. But what would you say, Miles?
I would say listen to Unminding too, but I would also say, why do we need them to understand? Why do we need to see? This is really interesting to me. It's like, we understand what we understand. Why do we need other people to understand it too? As long as they're not being insensitive. But if they just don't get it, they don't get it. I don't really see a problem with that personally. Now, if Patrick was here, he might come on and give an example where I could go a bit more deeply into it and understand what he was saying a little bit more. But I really do stand by, why do we need other people to think the same way that we do? Again, we're getting a little bit into ego there. We don't need other people to see what we see. We just need other people to have their experience, because that's what's right for them. But we need to have our experience that's right for us. So, yeah. And also, obviously, listen to Unminding, because that's the answer to everything.
Definitely. And I suppose it's still outsourcing it, isn't it? If you're saying, well, I need you to think this way, or I need you to see it from the way that I see it, that's, again, trying to fill a void of some sort by confirmation. So, yes. Okay, we have a question about Scientology. And it says, in Scientology, the process for helping a person get rid of stress or unwanted emotions is called auditing, from the Greek word meaning to listen. By finding moments in the past that are hidden from the conscious mind, it increases awareness. Please discuss. From Mr. Gallery.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I don't know much about Scientology. I have heard of auditing and this going into the past and clearing traumas. And I would say that really what we're talking about here, that would make no sense whatsoever, because the moments in the past that are hidden from the conscious mind are just moments of the past that don't exist until they come up for us to see. And I don't see that they're actually causing any problem from the point of view of the principles. When we need to see something, it will come up and we will see it, and it will be observed, and it will fall away from the understanding that we're teaching here. So for me, it's almost digging around looking for trouble. It's like the unconscious it's just, there's so much thought, again, it's like 100,000 thoughts a day. So conscious, unconscious, movement, everything is thought. So why do we need to change that or cure that? That to me doesn't make sense, because it's just going to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, because the mind is always going to make things up. If we completely believe what the mind is saying, the mind is going to make stuff up for us to believe. What's going on there is you're going into what you believe is the subconscious and clearing an old story. But to me, the old story, if seen through the eyes of the principles, has no power anymore anyway. So it doesn't need to be cleared, because it's just dissolved by not believing in it anymore. It's a shift away. It wouldn't make sense from this understanding. But if that's what you're into, that's what you're into.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat. It's a free world for the moment.
Kind of.
Okay, we have 2 more questions. So unless anyone else wants to come up, forever hold your peace until next week, but you're welcome to jump up for the last couple of minutes. We have a question from Leanne, and she said, is what I'm feeling true?
For me, 2 answers come up. In the moment that you're feeling it, it will really seem true. And it would be true in the sense of it will be a true reflection of your thought in the moment. But is what your thought is saying true? Probably not. To the separate self, to the character, to the identity, boy, will it seem true. But this understanding will detach us from that and allow us to see that it isn't. But then I don't want to discount. So earlier we talked about grief, and someone's grieving. I'm not going to say, well, your feeling's not true. There's a deeper self other than your separate self that's not feeling that, and you're fine. No, I'm going to sit in the grief with the person. I understand the humanity of it, the understanding of the feelings that we have and the depths of them and the loss that we can feel. Also the joy that we can feel, all the bandwidth of human emotion. And I don't ever want to deny that. But it's also incredibly helpful to know that there's somewhere inside of us that's always peaceful. So as the stormy waves of emotion begin to calm, we drop down into the depths of the water, into the stillness and the peace that we really are. So it's not a denial of the human experience. It's not a denial of the storm. It's knowing that there's always another place that we will come to when we're ready. And when we come to that place, it will be peaceful. When we come to that place, it will be loving. We'll have a knowing. We will realise the peace that we already are. And that's the beauty of what we point to here. It's not spiritually bypassing. It's not a denial of the experience. It's a different understanding of it, so that we get the human experience, but we also get something deeper to play with, to explore. And that will always bring us home, and it will always bring us back to the light and the love that we always are. What can be better than knowing that everything that we need is already within us? As I said earlier, there's no freedom to be found in the stories, past, present or future, but it doesn't mean to say we don't have the stories. The freedom is found when we go beyond them, when we see through them. For a lot of you come on every week to these calls, or if you're listening on the podcast, explore for yourself. Listen more, explore more. What resonates? What did you hear? That's the direction to go, and not analyse what you don't understand. Look towards what you do see. Look towards what feels right for you. So are your feelings true? Absolutely, in the moment that you're having them. Is the thinking that creates them true? No, that's just an illusion. That's coming and going. So you can see the different experiences that we can have of this being alive moment to moment. And the beauty in that, it's not a getting it wrong or getting it right. It's just the living of it. It's the feeling of it coming into your heart. The true self has nothing to do with the intellect, but both come from one place. It's the beautiful path that we're on together. It's the beautiful path of your life. It's the unfolding of it moment to moment. And it's the appreciation of the little things. It doesn't have to be in the big things. It can just be in the little things. And when we can see that, when we can see that simplicity, the problems tend to fall away. The problems tend to be seen as, the problem that looked like a problem is life not working out the way I wanted it to. That's the problem. So if I just can see that and I can say, okay, well, for now, that doesn't look how I want it to look. What do I commit to move forward to see it differently?
Yeah, I mean, it's expectations are a moment killer, right? You expect something or you see a person in a certain way and then all of a sudden reality hits and it's like, oh, fuck. Just accepting and observing and being in the moment means you can most of the time enjoy it because you're not needing or wanting anything from it. So and after you've said such a beautiful speech there, I'm going to do a WTF and remind us that life can be quite crazy, because our last question is from Secret Keeper, and he says, has World War III started? And if so, how does one prepare mentally?
Well, at 7:05 p.m. on Thursday, the 22nd of September, as far as I know, it hasn't started. And how do we prepare? Is such an interesting question, because it really looks like preparing mentally for something is going to make a difference. But how do you know what state of mind you're going to be in when something happens? You can't prepare for thought, because thought's going to come and it's going to be the thought that's on the table that you're going to have, not the thought you choose, not the thought that you've prepared for. So actually mentally preparing is completely a waste of time. And sometimes it can make things worse because we add more thought to something. So if I think I've got to mentally prepare to do unminding on a Thursday, I'd probably really stressed by the time I got to unminding, because it would be the pressure of mentally preparing for it would add another layer of thought to it. If I can see that I'm just going to get on the call, I'm going to have a few notes, I'm going to kind of free-form talk for a while and see where it goes and just trust that it will be okay. And if it's not, it won't be a podcast, we'll delete it. But I can't mentally prepare for it. It doesn't make any sense to me anymore. Now, before understanding the principles, that would have made sense. But now it doesn't really make sense. I love speaking to people. I love speaking in these groups. I could speak to 10,000 people online. 10,000 people in person would probably feel quite daunting to me. I've got some thinking around that. So if I had to do that tomorrow and I was going to sit here now and go, I need to mentally prepare for speaking in front of 10,000 people tomorrow, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't work. What would I do? Like repeat over and over again, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to be fine. It would send me into a mental frenzy. The thing that's going to really help is me seeing that the 10,000 people aren't going to create my experience. They're not going to create my feeling. That's going to come from me. I may get on stage and be nervous for a little while, but then at some point that nervousness will fall away and I would just be speaking and connecting and having a nice time. And that's the only thing I would do, because I would know that, or maybe not, maybe I'd be terrible and I'd freak out and I'd run off stage. But whatever I did now for something that was happening tomorrow would be fruitless.
Well, it's probably a good time to let you know that tomorrow we are speaking at Wembley Stadium in front of 10,000 people. Are you all right with that?
Oh, yeah, great, yeah. Delete your phone number.
Oh, it's so pretty. I mean, before we started, I would call you and I'd be panicking. I'd say, I can't do it. And I'd be really nervous about this, whether we were talking about something that I thought, oh, this means a lot to me and, all about me, rather than what the whole point of this was. And I was getting really tied up. And you would say, well, you can't do what? And I say, well, talk. And you say, well, you're doing it now, for goodness sake. And we just would laugh. When you really get to grips with this, you end up laughing and laughing. I mean, my voice is actually sore at the moment because I've been laughing constantly for 2 weeks. I've just had the best time and it's almost like everything's lifted. So definitely recommend learning more, listening more. And I just want to mention, we just had a comment while we're live. Alex Luffy has said that he heard about the podcast through a friend and he's listening to all the episodes. Some of the best energy for my ears. Thank you. So I just want to say thank you to whoever recommended Alex to listen to us, and also to you guys. If you can share the podcast with friends, family members. People don't talk about mental health as much as they should, or mental wellness. There's going to be something in one of the episodes that will help somebody, and the ripple effect continues. We want to reach as many people as possible. And you are the people that are, well, the only people that are going to be able to help us do it. So we really need your help, and we love seeing you here every week. The questions have been fantastic tonight. Any questions, you can DM us at any point. If you have subjects that you want us to talk about as well, please just get in touch, because this is the reason that we do it. And I think it's been great with all the questions tonight. Looking forward to next week again. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to round off with. It's been another really great one. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, no, it has. It's been really nice to have questions. It really makes it much more interactive. We're really getting to hear what people want to hear and unraveling their issues for them. So I think it's really, really important. Again, as Jem said, please share it with everyone. Like, let's get the message out there. This really is a mental health revolution that we want to create, and we're all on the team together. You know, it's me and Jem, but you're all on the team as well. And please, please, you know, anyone, but if they're suffering, please share the podcast with them, because we know the difference that it's made to us, and we know the impact that it can have on people. Thank you again. Please share. Also, any donations are always welcome, big or small. So we do run on donations, so that's always appreciated. And I am going to finish with a beautiful, I'd say it was a poem from, I think he's 16th century poet called Hafiz. And he says, I sometimes forget that I was created for joy. My mind is too busy. My heart is too heavy. Heavy for me to remember that I've been called to dance, the sacred dance of life. I was created to smile, to love, to be lifted up, and to lift others up. And I think if we can all come from there, we can all see that for ourselves, then we're going to definitely create a much better world for everybody to live in.